All right, everybody, we're back here in the studio with the Mossberg Model B, the little single-shot bolt-action gun. I've made the extractor for it. The extractor works fine. The problem is it's not firing reliably. So what I got to do is find out what's wrong with it. And that issue is going to lie in here, within the bolt. Now, I got to get the bolt apart. There's a couple things that could be wrong with it. One, the firing pin, which is this little bump right here. This is the firing pin, and it seems to be okay. This is the ejector, and this is the extractor I made there. Now the spring, when you fire this thing, you cock it, you pull the spring back. Now when it's out of the gun, it's not going to hold because the trigger is actually going to hold up against the firing pin there, or the striker, and it's got to be able to go and hit that. Now inside there, there's also another little rod there that transfers from the hammer piece there, striker piece, whatever you want to call it, to that rod, and then that transfers into the firing pin, which goes into there. I don't think the problem is the spring. The spring feels pretty good. So what we got to do is get this part apart, and I'm going to open up my screwdriver kit here. And I'm going to find a screwdriver that will fit that bit right there nicely. That's one of the nice things about these type of screwdriver bits. These are hollow ground, and this is an actual gunsmithing kit, is these fit these screws pretty good. So we're going to get this screw out. Don't lose this. This is another one that's very hard to find. So we'll get that little short screw out of there, and we should be able to pull the end of this off. There we go. And we can see all the little parts and pieces in there. Now there is the, I'm not exactly sure what this piece is called. Someone will correct me or tell me for sure. But this little piece here, like I said, just transfers the force from the hammer to the firing pin, and the firing pin is in here. And we should be able to get that out, and that could be my problem right there, is a lot of gunk. A lot of gunk. Or, oh, I think I'm missing something here. I think there's a pin that's got to come out of here. Let me go ahead and remove that pin. Yep, that was it. The extractor pin also holds in the firing pin. And there's the firing pin. What do we got going on here? We've got tons of gunk inside that thing. That is pretty darn nasty there. Yeah, that is a lot of crap in there. There's also a few other things going on in here too that I don't like the looks of. I'm not sure what this little point is sticking up right there, but that, I just don't know. I don't see where that's interfering with anything. There's also a couple other ones under here that are little sharp pieces sticking up. But other than that, it looks pretty good. I'm just thinking that that excessive amount of crud built up inside there. Let's get a fairly clean one here and see what we can get out of there. Yeah, that's a lot of crud. That may be my only issue there, is all that buildup inside there. So let's get it all cleaned up, thoroughly cleaned up, and then we'll get it out and try it. Okay, this little sharp point I'm seeing right there is actually directly in line with the firing pin itself. So this was machined out of one piece, and that's where they cut it off, because I can see the concentric circles around there where it's where it was machined, and they go right around that piece there. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. It shouldn't. I'll leave that there. This little piece here looks like where, when driving the pin in there for the extractor, the pin may have hit right in there. I will take a file and clean that little piece off there. Like I said, I don't think this one's going to hurt anything, but I'm definitely going to clean that one off. And one of the things you do have to make sure you do is get the pin below the surface on the, let's see, I think it's the right side of it, because if that sticks out, it's going to rub on the inside of the chamber there. So make sure there's nothing sticking out there. I do have my firing pin back in there, and it does move properly. Now I do want to make sure I've got just a little bit of lube in there, or maybe a lot. Wipe off the excess there. Make sure we get a little down inside. Just a little bit. Take Q-tip and wipe out some of that excess. Now we should be able to, let's go ahead and clean this up. We've already got it all taken apart, so might as well. I like frog lube because it stays there pretty much. So we'll put a little bit around the hammer there. It also protects really, really nice. So we'll get this put back in. Make sure our spring, yeah, still nice pressure on there. Got that little bit of free play in it, which it had before. We'll give it just a little snugging. Doesn't need to be super tight. Now a little frog lube on our pin here. Put that inside there. Don't let that go flying, it'll go across the room. We should be able to put this back on. Remember, the bolt hole, the screw hole there lines up with the bolt handle. Let's put a little lube on that too, because it does rotate a little bit. And that screw is, if you lose that, you're going to be in trouble, because that is a very specific screw. And you don't want to over tighten it or cross thread it, because it is going to be, it would be a bear to replace. There we go. And that one is going to get just the tiniest of snugging. Okay, just a little film of frog lube over the whole thing on the outside. Wipe the excess off my hands. And should be able to put it right back in there. Everything functions like it should so far, but the only way to really tell if it's going to do any good is to get this thing back out on the range. So let's take it out there and give it a few tries. Okay, back out here at the saloon with the Mossberg Model B after taking it apart and cleaning up the firing pin part of the bolt. Kind of embarrassed, because that's one of the things I stress you should do, especially when you get an old gun, is to take it apart, clean it up, check it all out and everything. And I only did what I saw. I put blinders on and did not look at the rest of it. So we're going to go ahead and put one round of Remington Thunderbolt in there, close the bolt on it, pull the cocking handle back, and see if it fires. And it did not. Let's try it again. And it still did not. Let's see what the hit looks like. The extractor worked fine. The hit still looks kind of weak, and that's not a good thing. I'm sure that spring is stout enough to do what it's supposed to do. Went off that time. Went off that time. Seems to be getting better. Spoke too soon. Okay, I sat out here and tinkered with it for a little bit before I decided to go back in, and I think I've got it figured out. So when I put a round in here and I close the bolt seems to close up against there pretty tight, and it looks pretty good. The problem is when I take and put a round in there and I close the bolt, it still looks pretty tight, and that looks pretty good. But when I pull this back, you can see the gap open up right there. That's the problem, because if I take this thing now that it's cocked and I push that bolt forward and I hold it forward, it fires every time. So what the issue is the same thing like on my Winchester Model 67, I believe it is the bolt is not allowing it to close all the way. There's so much gap in between there, and if you look at the back of the bolt there, I need to build that up just like I did on the 67. Now I know what the issue is. Let's get to working on it. Okay, just got back from out there at the saloon, and like I said, I hoped that cleaning would have done it, but it didn't do it. And what it is there's a lot of wear on this bolt. This is a very old gun. It's 1930, 31, somewhere around there. So it's had a lot of opening and closing on this bolt. And what's happened is, just like on my 67 Winchester, it was the same thing. There's slop in there. And what happens is when I put a round in there and I close it and I pull this back, it actually opens it a little bit. It pulls the bolt back away from there a little bit because the spring is being pulled back. The hammer's being held by the trigger that goes up there. So when you pull the trigger, it releases it and lets it go forward. What's happening though is there's a gap up there between the bolt face and the breech face. And when that pin fires, it just doesn't travel enough to crush that until I do it a couple times. Sometimes then it doesn't even do it. So what I did was, after I did some testing out there while I didn't have the camera on, and what I would do is I would take my thumb and I would pull the bolt forward and then take my shot, and it worked just fine. It would fire every single time when I did that. So what I'm gonna do is, just like I did on the 67, is I am going to pull the bolt out and I am gonna build up that little bit on the back of the bolt right there, because that is so worn down that it lets it come back too far. So I'll get this thing taken apart and then get it all set up. I've got my hood out, I got my TIG rig set up and everything, and I'm gonna do a little bit of welding on there, build it up, and then I'll shape it, make sure it fits in there fine, closes just like it's supposed to, and then we'll take a little bit of that cherry red compound that I used to harden the extractor, and we'll put a little bit on there to get it to harden up that part there, so that constant opening and closing there hopefully will let it last for a while. I'm used to turning off a knob on the back there. I've been a welder for 30 years. All right, now I got to get to do some filing and everything to get that shaped the right way and get it fit into the rifle. All right, so I almost did not put enough metal on there to do what it needed to do, but there is just enough where it doesn't give me that gap back here at this end now. And not enough perceivable movement in there anyways. Not extremely tight though either, so that's a good thing too. Now, what I've still got to do is I got to polish that up a little bit, because if I leave that rough like that, it could probably cause some problems later on. So I will polish that up, and hopefully I don't remove more metal than needs to be there, and clean this up a little bit. But you can see it used to have a flat spot on it. Now it's more rounded. And like I said, I just need to clean it up, make it look pretty. And what I'll probably do is at some point in time, I'll probably take this gun and strip all this down and maybe re-blue it, do the barrel and everything. Not an extremely valuable gun. So I don't mind taking it and redoing it. But it closes well, and when I cock it, it does not pull back as far as it did before. And like I said, I shouldn't. As long as I pulled my thumb up like that, it would fire just fine. So before we do too much more with it, I'm going to get it out on the range and see if that fixed my issue. Okay, back out here at the saloon again. Still got some Thunderbolts left in this box. I think I've got my issue solved. I got a fresh target up there. Going to put a round in here, cock it, and see how it does. That's one. Ejector is great. There's two. There's three. Four. Yeah, I would say the issue has been solved. I got 4 more left, so might as well go ahead and finish off this box. And I think we can call that a success. So that was the biggest thing on this. It was just excessive wear from the last, 90 years, I guess, that this gun has been around. There's been a lot of times that somebody's opened and closed this bolt on there, and it's just wore down the edge of it. And now it just works like it's supposed to. The extractor issue, of course, I had to make that. Why it was missing, I don't know, but it was, and I made a new one. And I fixed the bolt on there, and it is back to working condition. Now, the other issue with this gun is there's a nice size crack on the side of the stock here. Now, with it being a 22, it's not that big of a deal. I don't know if somebody used it for a club and hit something over the head with it or what, but it's not in bad shape. I think I'm going to call this one a success. I guess, and then maybe later on I'll do a video on restoring the whole thing, re-bluing everything, refinishing the wood, fixing that crack in there, and then we'll move on from there. Anyways, if you could, reach up here and hit this button to check out some of my other videos. Hit the little round one down there to subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching Small Caliber Arms Review and taking a look at the Mossberg Model B.